Hey guys, how you doing? It's Tom. Today is a very dark day for the history of Western civilization and for the future outlook of liberty in this world. And for the life of me, I do not understand why so many people remain willfully ignorant, or even worse, are aware of what's going on in the world and don't do anything. It couldn't be more clear that now is the time to stand up for what you believe in. Now is the time to stand up for freedom. Now is the time to stand up for liberty. Because now is when we have it. But it's slipping away. And if we let it slip away and our children and the next generation have to grow up under tyranny, well, that's not something I could live with. We have this remarkable opportunity, this slither of time in human history where humanity has advanced technology, has made advancements in human communications to a point of which people could have never imagined even 50 years ago. And these advancements have given us Twitter and YouTube and Facebook. And because of that, politicians on a national stage have won elections that were supposed to be impossible. Like Trump or not, his election was supposed to be impossible. The people of Britain voted to get out of the European Union. They voted for Brexit, to leave the authoritarian bureaucracy that had taken away their sovereignty, only made possible by these advancements in communication technologies. And because of that, 2016, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama called for the censorship of fake news. The #1 topic at Bilderberg is fake news, and these globalist think tanks get together and they say, how could we stop this from happening again? How can we stop politicians and causes that aren't our own from advancing? And then you see Facebook change their algorithms. FFRnews, I was growing 50 new followers a day. They changed their algorithms. I was losing followers daily, overnight. We found out from Project Veritas, undercover videos, that Twitter actively shadow bans supporters of Donald Trump, people they view to be conservative and libertarian. Which means, if I were to put out a tweet, I would think that people are able to see it. But people outside of my followers and even some of my followers can't see it. So I feel like no one's interacting with it, but in reality, it's because I'm being shadow banned. We've seen YouTube demonetize anyone with the wrong point of view. And as of last month, we've seen, even if you click the bell to get notifications for people's videos on YouTube, you don't get the notifications, at least not every time. And for certain percentages of subscribers to certain creators, the bell is being unclicked so that they no longer receive notifications, and people aren't aware that this is happening. So myself, Sticks, Hex, and Hammers, Mike Cernovich, the Rubin Report, Jordan Peterson, Stefan Molyneux, just to name a few, have all seen their viewership on YouTube drop dramatically over the last month because these change in algorithms. They are attacking our free speech, and we have to stand up now before it's gone. But it gets worse, and I want you to see how bad it could get. Well, a few years ago in Britain, Tommy Robinson, independent journalist and YouTuber, was instrumental in exposing or bringing original attention to the Telfair grooming scandal. Basically, thousands of young boys and girls have been groomed and fallen victim to pedophilia. But this went largely unreported by the government of Britain and the mainstream media in Britain. And the reason for that is because it went against their political agenda of creating a totalitarian government by bringing the radical sect of Islam into the country. Because 90% of the perpetrators involved in the grooming scandal were of Muslim descent, so the government was going to let it go. But thanks to these communication technologies, Tommy Robinson, this got exposed. Well, this morning, a couple of the perpetrators were being brought to their original trial. So outside of the trial, Tommy Robinson shows up to live stream them walking in and ask them if they have any shame for what they did. And while Tommy Robinson is live streaming, he was arrested for, I believe, inciting public hysteria, inciting public potential violence. I don't know exactly what it's called, but inciting in public. He was arrested, and within 1 hour, for live streaming outside of this court case, Tommy Robinson has been sentenced, we'll call it, in 1 hour, to 13 months in prison for covering this event and wrongthink. Tommy Robinson has already been falsely imprisoned in the past. I'm going to make 2 videos this week, which I please ask that you spread around because I'm freaking pissed off. And when I'm pissed off, you know I can make some good videos. So I'm going to make 2 videos this week. 1, the deterioration of speech in the UK and Tommy Robinson's arrest. And 2, why Tommy Robinson was arrested in the past and forcefully imprisoned. But because of who he is, he's likely now to be killed in the prison over the next 13 months. In fact, it's more likely that he is murdered it's more likely that he dies in prison than he actually is able to serve his 13-month prison sentence. But with his arrest and imprisonment, free press and freedom of speech is completely dead in the United Kingdom. Supposed to be one of the beacons of Western civilization and individual liberty, right? In fact, freedom of press is so suppressed that even mainstream media news outlets or independent journalists, if they report on this in Britain, the government has issued a warning that anyone who reports on Tommy Robinson's arrest in the United Kingdom can themselves be arrested. Tommy Robinson for reporting on pedophilia within the United Kingdom. Freedom of the press and freedom of speech is dead in the United Kingdom. Unless people stand up now. And I don't see how people could stand by idly and do nothing, because if you do nothing, the precedent is going to be set. And everything that is freedom in the United Kingdom is gone. It is no more free a country than the Soviet Union was under communism. The West is falling. And for the life of me, what happened to when men used to be men? I mean, Tommy Robinson has put himself out there, like I'm doing now, made himself the face to fight against the totalitarian regime that currently rules over Britain. And now he's unjustly arrested in prison for having wrongthink, for doing reporting that the government doesn't want. And the people of Britain are going to remain silent? Where's your balls? Where's the greatest generation? What would the World War II generation do? There should be tens of thousands of people sitting outside of the prison that Tommy Robinson is being held in. Tens of thousands of people should be sitting outside there in a circle, refusing to move. Every one of them live streaming over YouTube, refusing to move until the press covers what is happening and until Tommy Robinson is removed from his false imprisonment. And if they did that, that would be a win for liberty. But people aren't going to do that because there's no balls anymore in society. Because they pushed feminism so much, that they've attacked masculinity so much, that no one stands up for what's right. And they don't even have the foresight to see that now is the time to stand up. I mean, my God, if I was in Britain, I'd be kicking the damn door of that prison down. Thank God for the Second Amendment in the United States of America. Thank God for the Second Amendment. Get as many guns as you can. Get as many bullets as you can. Because if you think for 1 second this isn't coming in America, you got to get yourself checked. We have the First Amendment and they're doing everything they can to erode it. And speaking of how they're eroding it, let's talk about how they did it in the United Kingdom. So what they did in Britain is they declared certain speech to be hate speech. So Tommy Robinson has been very outspoken about radical Islam, the sect of Islam that subscribes to the literal interpretation of Sharia law. Now, under that sect of Islam, right, if the literal interpretation of Sharia law, if a woman walks in public, she takes off her burqa, she's without a man, maybe she shows some legs, under Sharia law, it is perfectly fine for her to be raped, right? There's grooming under the radical sect. It is perfectly fine to groom children for pedophilia. Muhammad himself, right, engaged in pedophilia. If a woman goes to drive a car, under Sharia law, that's a crime. And the response to these crimes is very violent suppression. Very violent suppression. Speaking up against this is blasphemy because you're speaking up against the word of Muhammad. So you can be physically attacked and murdered for speaking up against these practices. So look what happens. Over 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, 1,000 years of this radical ideology, people who speak up against it are violently suppressed and murdered. So as time goes on, there's less and less of these people around who are willing to speak up against the violence of this ideology. It's a religion, not a race, an ideology. On top of that, you have anyone who's speaking up being physically attacked, murdered. So there's less and less people. And anyone around who might want to speak up, and I'm talking about Muslims, I'm talking about people who subscribe to Islam. Anyone who might want to reform within the religion, who wants to speak up, doesn't speak up because they're afraid, because they see anyone who does speak up is met with violence and potentially murdered. So over time, you have any reformers, any person who wants to talk about, any person within the religion of Islam, who wants to talk about the problems within the religion, who wants to reform so that Islam can be what the reformers want it to be, the religion of peace and love. Any one of them who tries to speak up will be shot down. So they can't speak up, so they don't speak up. And the radical totalitarian sect of Islam, who subscribes to the literal interpretation of Sharia law, they become the ruling class, they become the authoritarians. So now, someone like Tommy Robinson sees this radical ideology, not religion, ideology, being brought over to the West. And he speaks up against it. And that speech is declared hate speech because he's speaking up against the religion of Islam. But his speech isn't hate speech. Tommy Robinson is actually providing a voice to the reformers within the religion of Islam who themselves are suppressed by the totalitarian wing, who themselves aren't able to speak up against this tyranny because if they do speak up, they are possibly murdered, right? They can't speak up. They're being suppressed by the radical sect. So Tommy Robinson tries to provide a voice to those people, and his speech is declared hate speech, when in reality, he's speaking up against the hate speech that has suppressed the peaceful reformers within the religion of Islam. And the government of Britain uses this excuse to declare any speech which goes against their agenda as hate speech, which in actuality, the government of Britain is protecting the true hate speech of the radical interpretation of the religion of Islam. Anyone who draws a picture of Muhammad is killed. A woman who walks out in the streets and shows some leg can be raped and stoned to death. That's hate speech. And they should be allowed to have that speech. But they've suppressed any speech that goes against that. They've suppressed the speech of the reformers. And the reformers can't speak up because they're afraid. And Tommy Robinson has tried to provide a voice for the reformers, but his speech has been declared hate speech. You see? You see how this works? So in reality, the government of Britain is claiming that they are silencing people like Tommy Robinson because they're standing up against hate speech against the minority of the religion of Islam within the country. But in reality, the government of Britain is aiding in the suppression of peaceful speech, of free speech, of reformers within the religion of Islam, and allowing for the radical totalitarian sect to take control. Now is the time to stand up for what's right, because they're already rolling out that hate speech bullshit here in America. Where is your balls? Where are the men? I mean, Britain's lost. Where are these people picketing outside of Tommy Robinson's prison? Where are the people of Britain protesting every day, live streaming every day the false imprisonment of truth teller Julian Assange? You should be ashamed of yourselves. You should be ashamed. Now is the time to stand up for what's right. They are increasing the censorship on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and all these platforms under the guise of protecting us from hate speech, when in actuality, the government themselves are the ones committing the hate speech. And it's only going to get worse, and if we let this happen, if what happened to Tommy Robinson is allowed to stand, then we've already lost already, because once you lose the speech, everything else goes behind it. I beg you to stand up for what's right. Please click the bell on my channel, because it's already been brought to my attention that people that click the bell aren't getting notifications, so make sure you're still subscribed, you get the notifications. Please follow me on Bitchute. I'm trying to get more and more of my videos uploaded onto that platform. We need to get other platforms. I might be a pain in the ass, but getting on Bitchute, it's worth your time, because we can't stand for this type of censorship. We can't stand for the attack on free speech. If you want to support me financially, please do. I really appreciate my patrons. I put a tremendous amount of time and effort into this. You make it possible. You're supporting liberty. I hope by supporting me financially, you feel that you're getting something out of it, because you're putting your money into the effort to stand up for freedom. And what else? I mean, if we're not standing up for what's right, what are we doing? So for as little as $1 a month, www.patreon.com. Please follow me on my other social media platforms. I am TomFFRnews on Minds, Twitter. I'm Tom Anderson on Gab, Facebook, and FFRnews on Facebook. Tom Anderson on Steemit. And I know it's coming at you a little. Well, anyway, appreciate your support. Thanks, guys.